Good afternoon. My name is Tekiwa Smith. I'm CEO and Principal Consultant of Kemet Educational Services, and I want to welcome you to our STEMport programs, Kupcakes and Konvos. So our STEMport program is our program for parents where we want to provide you with strategies for your child's academic success in STEM. And our Cupcakes and Convos workshop is our way to build community among parents. So you can have conversations with your afternoon snack, or like me, I have my afternoon tea. And we are just going to chat about various topics in STEM with a guest that does that very topic very well with their children. And so it is back to school time. Some of you have been back in school for weeks. Some of you just started right after Labor Day. But this back to school looks a little different. Some of you all are only doing virtual learning. Some of you are doing a hybrid. Some of you all are actually taking your kids back to school. But no matter what it is, it definitely looks different than last school year. And we all need a little support, as parents. And one of the things that I always say is really important that we do every back to school year is the importance of communicating with your child's school, with your child's teacher, and knowing what is going on in your schools. And it is especially important since we're starting the school year in a global pandemic. And another thing is my thoughts are whenever you start early. You don't want, as a educator or as a parent, the first communication about a child to be about something negative. So that's why I am bringing our first guest, Mrs. Adero Carter. She's a STEM coach, which means she's an educator, and she is a parent as well. And so I have seen it in my mommy face groups, all on social media, how this school year and how we're starting and how it impacts parents and educators. And so I want to bring Adero on so we can talk about that and starting back to school and what things you would do as if you were a normal school year and the adjustments that we have to make as a result of starting this school year in the middle of a global pandemic. So without further ado, Adero and I are just going to start our conversation. We're friends and colleagues, so you were just joining in our convo as if we were talking on Google Duo or FaceTime or having coffee or tea and cupcakes in person. So thank you so much, Adero. So my first question is, how are you doing as a parent and educator right now?
It's taxing, but we're making it. And I think I have a leg up on some because I've been an educator for at least 20 years now. And so that makes it a little easier for me to manage my boys. But the first thing that I have to do for them is make sure that they are in the mindset that I'm still in school, that this is not a break. And so the setting in which I have prepared for them to do their lessons every day is very important. We don't want them to be sitting up in the bed or just maybe on the couch lounging in pajamas because, they're not as focused. And so I have them sitting at a table or a desk, and I make sure that they know their daily schedule and that they're prepared and ready for each day. I actually write their schedules out on the board for them so that they don't lose track of where they're supposed to be because it's a lot. They're actually in virtual sessions from about 8 to 3 o'clock every day. And so it's a lot. And so they have to make sure that they're where they're supposed to be in each class on time. So I write their schedules out for the sake of them and myself so I can help keep them on task. And I just make sure that they're focused. I don't allow them to have their phones or any other gadgets that may disrupt them during their virtual lessons. And I try to separate them from each other as much as possible because they do distract each other. They're 9 and 13 and they're boys, and kids will be kids. So from time to time, they do distract each other. And so I try to keep them away from each other as often as possible. So if you have two separate spaces in your house that you can put each of your children, if they're distracting each other, that may be a better solution. Unfortunately, they have to come to work with me, and I don't have two different rooms I can put them in. So they're in the same room with myself. And so I just keep them as far apart as I can. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's it.
I was asking, how were you managing, having to still go to work and managing your kids' virtual learning, right? Because you can't not work, right? That's not your
not work. So the first thing is I have been blessed enough to be able to take them to work with me. So they go to work with me every day. And I get them started. I make sure that they're squared away so that I can focus more on what it is I need to do to complete my job every day. And I really would say so far, so good. I've had a couple of days where I've had issues with the kids and issues on my job at the same time. And it was like coming at me from both sides. And I'm still trying to maintain my work and make sure that my children are able to complete their assignments and stay focused on their work. So luckily, I've only had a couple of days like that. And my boys are a little older. So when I do need to leave my office, which is often, I'm able to leave them in there alone and go about my day. And I just, stop by my room as often as I can and peep in on them and make sure that they are still focused and on task, and I make it work.
A few months ago, you weren't in the school building. You were managing this at home. So what are some things that you think you did well, or some challenges or things that, you used to calm that you can share with other parents that are still working at home and still managing their children virtual learning?
I think it was a little easier for me when I was at home because I didn't have to leave my workspace and run around the building and do all sorts of things. So I was able to give a little bit more of my time to my boys at that time. And I was able to keep them in separate rooms at that time. So the distractions weren't as frequent. So being at home, the most difficult thing being at home was trying to create a productive work and learning environment. I think was the most difficult thing being at home. And so, like I said, that was very important. I didn't allow the boys to sit in their beds and complete their assignments. We went downstairs and we sat at the table. Well, I had one in the room with me and I had my other son in another room. But we were sitting at tables and chairs so that we could be alert and focused in the mindset that we all still have work to do. Managing lunches and things like that, I think, was actually easier at home because we could all take the same lunch break. I prepare lunch, all was well. Being back in the building, their lunch is not my lunch. So sometimes I don't have lunch. But it's okay. The boys have lunch every day. So the home setting for me was a little easier because my job was not as demanding working from home because there were just some things that I was not able to do in that particular setting. And so I had more time to focus on the boys, and it was a little calmer.
So now asking another question about the importance of communicating with your school and the school district. How important is that? And what are some of the things that are the same that happens every school year? And what are things that are different or parents have to be more conscientious about paying attention to or asking their school or staying, abreast of the school district's policies right now?
Mm-hmm. Actually, I don't think anything is the same right now. I really can't think of anything that's pretty much the same as it would be if we were face to face. So communication is extremely important because the teachers now, I don't know if a lot of people realize it, they're actually busier now than they would be if they were teaching face to face. So they don't have a lot of time on their hands, as some would think. When they're not providing instruction, they're planning for those instructions and they have to plan for A, B, and C because being virtual, there are a lot of things that can go wrong. And so they have to have backup plans, they have to have alternatives for different situations. And so they're not as readily available as we think, and they're stressed, they're overwhelmed, they have all of these things going on. So it can be really, really important to keep up with communicating with the teachers. They may not reach out to you as often as you would like them to. My fourth grade teacher is actually pretty persistent. We have a platform called Class Dojo. So she's sure to reach out to us almost on a daily basis to make sure that the parents stay abreast of all of the activities that the students are expected to complete for that day. But if your teacher is not giving you those precise instructions, it's up to you as a parent to have that communication and to ask, is there anything I need to be aware of this week that I can help my child with to ensure that they are completing all assignments? I'm not sure what platforms all schools have, but there's one that I know everyone has, which is email. So just send a simple email at the beginning of the week on Monday and just ask, is there anything that I need to be aware of to assist my student throughout the week? If they have different platforms like Class Dojo and others, you can send a simple message. Those go through instantly. And if the teacher has it up on their phone or other device, they'll get it instantly. They may not respond instantly, but they will respond when they have the opportunity. So just make sure that your communication is positive and extend some grace. So if they are not responding in the time that you think, just know that they have your child's best interest at heart and they have a lot going on as well. And when they can respond, they will.
So how do you keep up with district policies, especially if kids are in districts where they are in-person instruction or they may be some hybrid? Because, especially if you're in person or virtual, in person or hybrid, I've been seeing some stories where the district personnel aren't encouraging forthrightness about, the COVID situation or not as communicative about what's going on. And how do you learn that so you can keep your child safe, even though you may have to send them to the school building or you don't know when they're going to stop the virtual, right? Because not all districts are planning to do this the entire year. So how do we find out, you told us about the school level and teacher level. How do we find out higher level from the district or even the state Department of Ed?
So every school district has board meetings that are open to the public. So it's up to the parents to stay abreast of those board policy dates and to attend those board meetings whenever possible, because that's where all of that information is disseminated. They make those decisions during board meetings and they cannot not allow the public to attend. They're virtual, but I have attended every virtual board meeting since this summer so that I know what's going on. So I know the changes that are coming. And the schools themselves as well should be sending that information out to parents as soon as it's received at the district level. The administrators in the building get that information and they are to disseminate the information to parents in a timely manner to allow them time to prepare for whatever changes are forthcoming. And I can say that I think overall Fulton County has been doing a pretty good job of that. We have several group chats on Facebook where all of the parents are involved. And so we just share that knowledge amongst each other. And the principals have been doing an extremely wonderful job of sending out constant communication as well. But as a parent, I'm not going to wait for that information to come from the school. I am going to do my part. And even if you're not able to attend the sessions, the board meetings when they are live, they usually have it somewhere on the district's website where you can go back and you can watch the recording, or you can access the minutes to see what decisions were made.
So you made a point about parent groups and Facebook groups. How important are they for parents to support each other in general, but especially during these times?
They're extremely important. So I'm a part of a Facebook group called Self-Voicing Parents for Education. And there are so many wonderful things and initiatives that I've learned about through this group, and I'm an educator. But when everything started happening and Looney made the decision that we were going to go virtual, all of the parents, some of us can't, because we have to go back to work. We don't have anybody to watch our kids. So the group came together as a family and started to create pods. And so they created pods for any kind of setting that you can imagine. So if you needed a pod that was just for kindergartner, or you needed a pod where you had a kindergartner and a third grader. So the communication was in the group, and everybody was just there to help everybody in any way that they could, to ensure that all of the students in our community were able to be taken care of for those families that couldn't afford daycare, couldn't afford to stay home and educate their children. And so we came together as a community and created pods for every situation that was needed.
And that's good. And it's going back to when we grew up, we don't see it as much, but really having that community taking ownership so that we can really support each other. And so that's great. So how do people get in these parent groups? If you typically, did not build relationships with other parents, or you're not a part of the school PTA, how do you start that now? Because you're saying, especially in these, it's important in general, but especially now, it is important to get, the community support, even if it's just you chatting in a Facebook group, right? Or a group me chat. How do you start if that was something that wasn't important to you before? How do you start that now?
Just reach out to friends or other parents in your area and just ask, are there groups in my area that I can join that would be of some assistance? I can guarantee that just about every group, there is a group called Atlanta Moms. I'm in that one, and Mompreneurs. So I'm in a lot of different groups. So they're out there. Some of the groups you can just search for on Facebook if you know the names of them. If not, just ask around. They're there and they're providing tremendous support.
So I have a question about some things that I have been seeing. The majority of educators are great, but what happens, like the case in Texas where the teacher saw a toy gun and sent the police to the house, or we're seeing these issues where, kids can't have snacks, or, there are some school policies that, for lack of a better term, are over policing what happens in people's homes. How do you address that, and how do you have that balance? Because this is not a normal school year, right? And yes, we know that kids need to be strict and learn, but we also know they're at home. So how do we, balance that? And what advice do you have to educators to give that grace, and advice to parents if they happen to catch themselves in a situation where they feel that, that, for lack of a better term, over policing is happening beyond, the normal stuff you said, like don't show up in pajamas, you know, like that type of stuff. How do you manage that as a parent and as an educator to not do that, right?
So, as an educator, I don't know any of them personally who are over, but I have heard of these instances. Sad but true. It would be my hope that the educators are more concerned with the learning and the growth of the student versus a toy gun or a child having a snack during a live session. Unfortunately, everyone is not extending that grace. And as a parent, if I felt like they were over policing what was happening in my house and it wasn't illegal, it wasn't inappropriate or any of that, honestly, I just turn my camera off. I would turn my child's camera off. They wouldn't be allowed to view what's going on in my home if they were over policing to that extent, because that's an invasion upon what my rights are within my own home. So if it's that situation and it's that extreme, I definitely turn my child's camera off.
So what do you feel in general? Do you think cameras should be on? Do you think you should have the option, or do you think it works best to give the kid a camera break? Because I think you know, Adero and I are friends, so I think I sent you a video of the kindergartner teacher. All her kids were paying attention, and one of them stuck a doll in the hole where that kid went, right? So, what do you feel about, you know, should we have the cameras on? Should we allow kids to have a break? Because, you know, on one hand, they need the instructional minutes, right? But at the same time, they're at home, you know, and even us as adults are struggling with, you know, not always being able to do as many of the activities as we can. So I can't imagine a 5-year-old. They were super creative to stick that doll up there, though. Not wanting to do it, huh?
Mommy did that. Mommy said my baby needed a break and put that doll up there.
Okay.
But honestly, parents, it is extremely important for the cameras to be on for several reasons. Teachers want to monitor active engagement. They want to know that the students are engaged, that they're actually paying attention, and they're focused on the learning at hand. They can't do that if they can't see the child. So, but there are some extreme cases where a parent or a child may deem it more important for the cameras to be off. So I will say that the parents should be, I don't know, because some parents choose not to have the cameras on just because. Now, if you're in a situation where your living conditions may not be what you want it to be, and you may not want everyone to know or be able to see your living conditions, and you can't find a space in your home or your apartment, wherever you may live, that will provide the option for the child to not be exposed, then yes, you have the right to have your cameras off. So there are some extenuating circumstances where the cameras may need to be off. But if none of that applies to you, it is important for the students to be able to interact with their classmates, to see their classmates. So they're not face to face. So they have very limited interaction with children their own age. So it's actually healthy for them to be able to see their classmates and be seen by their classmates, and for their teachers to be able to see them, because I have witnessed some students, my children as well. I know when my children's cameras are off, And I have to constantly fuss at them and remind them to turn their cameras on, because their teachers want their cameras on, and I understand why. And there's no reason for them not to have their cameras on. And so
does the cameras help the teachers gauge how their virtual learning is going? So if like half the kids are falling asleep, then they need to do something better, right? Because they're adapting as well, right? So is that what the camera being on helps the teacher know, like this is working, this not working?
And they can't do that if they can't see the students, and they're asking questions and they're looking for students to respond. And I don't know if you've ever done a Zoom and you were the presenter and you asked a question and it was complete silence. It's deafening silence. So the teachers want to be able to see the students to gauge what's going on. Well, are they not answering because they're not paying attention? You can't do any of that if you don't see your students. Just like in the classroom, when the teachers are teaching, they have visual contact. They are able to see what's going on in the class and what the issues may be. So it is very important for the cameras to be on if you can allow your students to do so.
Okay. So the other question that I have as, a parent, so your kids are on Zoom, you're managing the Zoom. How do you, their virtual instruction, how are you managing or what are some strategies you give parents to manage the homework time? And then how do they get a break? Because, some kids, they're not getting their textbooks, right? So they're on this computer looking at, doing the instruction, and then they're on the computer doing their work. So how do you manage that? And how do you balance giving your kids a break from their screen time, right? Because they're not used to looking. Well, they can do it when they're playing games, right? But for homework, right, and learning, how do you make that adjustment and manage that and give them breaks from the screen time?
So let's just back up. Did you say homework? Homework.
Not everybody getting homework or their assignments. I know some kids that are still getting homework. So I know a few parents that have said their kids are overwhelmed because they are getting homework. So I have a friend that has a 4th grader, and already he has said, "Daddy, I give up. This is too much." So there are some kids that are getting homework, not just the assignments. Yeah.
Bless their hearts. So my children have not had any homework. I will say this, for elementary level, K through 5, or whatever your elementary school is, K through 6, I honestly don't think homework should be given at this time. Like you stated, as much screen time as the students are having, I wouldn't suggest that homework be given, and that if it's more screen time. Now, if it's going to be an assignment where screen time is not involved, that's different. I'm okay with that. But if it has to be digital, I'm not for it at all. Now, with the high school and the middle school kids, that may be a little different. Hopefully, as I stated, it can be an assignment that does not require screen time. Maybe some type of project, some kind of experiment. I know one of the teachers at my school will give the students a STEM project to do throughout the week. She maybe give it to them on Monday, and they have the entire week to complete it. She'll send the list of items needed to the parents. And it's usually something very simple that most people would have around the house, maybe involve some baking soda or vinegar, just something simple that will engage the students. But to be honest, and I hope my district isn't watching this, I am not for homework at this time. Absolutely.
I get it.
No.
I get it.
And if I were a parent and my child was getting excessive homework and it included screen time, I would review the homework policy, and I would see, what percentage, because usually homework is worth a very small percentage, maybe 10% of a student's grade. And I would make that executive decision. Is it worth it? Is it worth the screen time and the constant stress on my child? If not, we opt out of that homework.
Okay. Hey, I'm a firm believer, and that's why we have this STEMport program, right? Ultimately, no matter what a teacher, school district says, you are responsible for your child. And so you have to make the decisions that you think are best for your family. So, are there any closing words or advice that you want to give other parents on, how to navigate this back to school? And is there anything special for STEM or that you want to give to us?
Just relax. Try not to stress about it and help your children maintain a sense of calmness and not be overwhelmed as well. Set a schedule, make it work. In whatever environment that you're in, make it work to the best of your ability. And STEM can be done at home. All kinds of things. Cooking is STEM. You can have an outside garden that's STEM. Walk around nature trail, that's STEM. Takiwa has all kinds of STEM engagements for students. She has STEM in the cities on Saturday. She has her teen summit talks. So there are all sorts of ways to engage your students in STEM during this pandemic that are free and available to all. There are several websites. You can go through pta.org. They give a lot of home lessons that can be done in the house. And there's another one that I use quite frequently. What is the name of it? Oh gosh, it won't come to me.
Is it the Kahoot?
No, not the one. It's oh gosh, STEAM Powered Family. I think it is. I think that's what it's called. STEAMpoweredfamily.org. And so we provide a lot of free online activities for students. And so just Google STEM at home. And there are a wealth of activities that can be done in the comfort of your home or in your backyard to engage your children in STEM-based activities, as well as some learning kits and some toys that can be purchased.
Well, thank you so much, Adero. I am really happy that you kicked it off. I do think that, a lot of us didn't imagine still being in the midst of a pandemic, didn't imagine it still being a thing, and so we all are making adjustments, and you gave us some great tips to do that. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing, your experience as an educator. And like Adero said, relax. Our kids, take the energy that we are on. So if we're stressed, it's going to make them stressed. And so just, the key takeaways I got from Adero's conversation is relax. Remember, you are in control of your child's education. So stay communicated with, your teachers, your school district. And if a policy doesn't work for you, it's okay not to follow it. Just make sure that you communicate with, the district leaders and whoever you have, because ultimately you are responsible for the well-being of your family. So thank you so much, Adero. This is the end of our Cupcakes and Convos, and we hope that you will join us for future conversations with your afternoon tea, snacks, cupcakes, or nothing at all. Just join the conversation. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Bye.